we are a apartheid state that gives rural areas 300 seats in parliament, 300 to 350 seats in parliament, whereas the maximum of your GDP and your population get only about 200 seats in parliament. ठीक है? अब ये problem है तुम्हारा. So this entire migration, rural to urban migration that happened, about 600 to 700 million people moved in those 20 years from rural to urban areas. Cities where refined conversation. I'm not getting into the quality of the conversation. Okay? You'd still have the vacuous auntie who'd talk like Rana Ayub and say, sunlight falling on my balcony is actually a metaphor for the Hindu genocide against Muslims. Showing how they intend to burn us alive through the rays of the sun and blah blah. ऐसे भी बकवास बकते थे, but at least it was done in a refined way.
It's the same thing who won slam poetry competitions when they were teens.
Exactly. I mean, it wasn't done in Rana Ayub sort of low-class English. Terrible woman. But anyway, so कम से कम कुछ refinement होता था, nuance भी होता था थोड़ा बहुत, and all of that. And you had these institutions in cities that were quality institutions that got swamped with a quantity intake. तो ना ही तो तुम घर के रहे ना घाट के, because your quality institutions had to then cater to quantity. So the net result was जो भी तुम्हारा थोड़ा सा expertise हुआ किया करता था, all of that got destroyed. Like, my grandfather who was in the army, both on my maternal side and my paternal side, who was an industrialist, they both went to public schools and public colleges. And I don't mean Delhi public school. They went to government schools and government colleges.
Yeah.
And they got a fantastic education. And these were the British times when, every school, every college had an extraordinary level of education. So today, you go to a government school, you won't even dream of going to a government school. So you've had this sort of socially upwardly mobile intake into the civil services. Now, remember, when the civil services were formed, they were meant to be for the elite. They already knew manners. They knew how to charm your pants off or your skirt off or whatever, depending on your sexual proclivities. They'd managed to charm whatever off of you. They'd managed to seduce you with your words. They'd managed to seduce you with great food, refinement, la-di-da-di-da. Today, you have completely ghati people joining the civil services and all of that, coming from a third-rate education. Okay, so it's a lot of things. You don't have the class, you don't have the upbringing, you are not taught the class or the upbringing. In France, it's a very secular kind of intake. They will take you no matter if you're smart enough, they will take you. Doesn't matter तुम्हारा family background क्या है. But they will standardize your training. You will learn to talk about French wine, French food, la-di-da-di-da. I'm being frivolous in case of food. It's so much more.
Right.
Picking up social cues, which are very important for a diplomat. Right. I mean, you can laugh about it, but when you actually have to extract information from somebody, you'll realize why James Bond is. I mean, James Bond is a caricature. But that whole, I'm going to have a 1961 Boulanger and Sevruga caviar, not beluga. There's a reason to it. Okay? There is a very good reason to it.
Yeah.
So here you have a compound problem. Your Latvian circuit has been affected by yuppies who are not sophisticated, cannot express themselves with clarity, have a terrible education, all learn by rote. So they are not even able to macro the problems. They are not able to nuance the problems. They are not able to articulate solutions for it. You have a very, very potently toxic mix happening in Delhi at the moment.
But I'm sure there must be some kind of feeder schools or classes that they can take that somehow allow them to appear more sophisticated than the background they originally come from, right? I'm talking about etiquette classes that even I took as a kid. Drawing, it was something that my drawing teacher was running in tandem with her drawing classes. And it's simple things like don't put your hands on the table, understand these wines, all of those shenanigans. But have you seen people, like the Americans have this idea, like Americans like this made up idea of beauty, like a normal person, made up and padded up and, makeup वगैरह लगा के उसको बनाया गया. Have you seen people who've come from nothing and just, learned the tricks of the trade, learned how to speak in Lutyens Delhi, learned all of those things?
No, I've never met anyone like that. I think we'd love to imagine these stories, Cinderella stories, or in this case, to be gender correct, Cinderella stories. I've never actually seen a Cinderella. जिसका फैमिली बैकग्राउंड थोड़ा सा है, वो हमेशा ही रहते हैं. They've never been able to fit in. And the problem is, they then start flaunting their power. They will pretend that they know everything. If you don't agree with them, government funding नहीं मिलेगा तेरे को. ठीक है ना? You basically have to pretend, I learned this art. I refused to do it after a point of time. क्योंकि अगर मेरे को कोई चूतिया लगा, मैं सीधे उसके मुंह पे बोल देता था तो चूतिया है. जॉइंट सेक्रेटरी, एडिशनल सेक्रेटरी, व्हाटएवर. बट प्रॉब्लम क्या होता था कि मैं इतने घोंचों के ऑफिस में गया हूं, इतने मुश्किल से मैंने हंसना बंद किया है, और मैं यहां बैठ के देख रहा हूं, भाई तू सेक्रेटरी टू गवर्नमेंट है, तेरे को पहले किस चूतिये ने पैदा किया, उसके बाद किस महागांडू ने तेरी परवरिश की, किस सुअर के बच्चे ने तेरे को पढ़ाया, और उससे ज्यादा कौन से ये सुअर और सुअराइन और डाइन थे तेरे सिलेक्शन बोर्ड पे जिसने तेरा सिलेक्शन. मैं बैठ के देख रहा हूं, तू कहां से सेक्रेटरी बना भाई? मेरा कुत्ता तेरे से ज्यादा लायक है सेक्रेटरी बनने के लिए. I sometimes, it's scary, dude. It's really, really scary. The caliber of intake you see is just extraordinary crap.
Are there programs to perhaps, change that?
There's not, because see, you have to acknowledge a problem. You even have to understand what the problem is. Now, you tell me the way I have condensed it down for you, that there is a real class problem. First of all, they will not even acknowledge a class problem because it's politically incorrect. The second thing is, they don't even know that there is a class problem. Okay. So, acknowledgement ki baat dur, they don't even know that this problem exists. Second, they don't want to acknowledge ki tumhara education, even though you've passed the selection board, your education might have, you've reproduced everything by rote. Where is the application of mind? So, see, you have to first acknowledge all these problems to fix them. Okay? So, it's not going to happen. What is, like, I specialize in defense, so I can keep telling you defense में क्या होता है. हर बार एक नया डिफेंस प्रोक्योरमेंट पॉलिसी आता है. हर 3-4 साल कुछ नया पॉलिसी आता है.
Right.
How do you fix a human problem through documentation? See, if you have a country like Ethiopia, not Ethiopia, well, Ethiopia is heading towards a civil war now. Somalia was also a civil war. Eritrea, Ethiopia का भी war हुआ था. Sudan में हुआ था. If fixing that problem was as easy as a constitution, all Somalia or Ethiopia or Sudan needed to do was to enact a new constitution. Does that fix the problem? No. So there's this belief that somehow a new defense procurement policy can get rid of corruption. It can get rid of incompetence. It can't. But again, how do you explain this to someone? When I tell people this, ठीक है, a few people agree with me. Most will turn around and say, हाँ गंजे टकले मोटे, तू डिफेंस सेक्रेटरी है क्या? तेरे को ये सब पता है क्या? तूने इलेक्शन जीता है क्या? तेरे को सब पता है क्या? तू मिलिट्री में था क्या? मोटे गाडू नहीं, तेरे को क्या पता? Okay, fine.